Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter, and oh my goodness, do I have something incredible to show you today that's going to absolutely blow your mind. Because what if I told you that the most ordinary looking penny sitting right now in your wallet, in your piggy bank, or hidden away in some dusty jar could potentially be worth $50 million? That's right, $50 million for a single penny. And I'm not exaggerating, I'm not joking around, this is absolutely real. And today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating and extraordinary coins that has ever existed in numismatic history. Now, before we get into the absolutely mind-blowing details of this coin, I have to tell you something. And stick with me till the end of this video because not only will we explore this incredible $50 million penny, but we're going to discover even more coins that are worth absolutely astronomical amounts of money. And some of them will make your jaw drop when you hear their values. I'm talking about coins worth 88 million, 113 million, 135 million, and potentially even more, so you definitely do not want to miss what's coming up next in this video. Let me introduce you to the 1955 wheat penny with double die error. And before I tell you the value, let me paint you a picture of what makes this coin so incredibly rare and valuable. Picture this, it's 1955, we're in post-war America, the economy is booming, people are spending money like never before. And at the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia, something extraordinary is about to happen, something that would create one of the most sought-after coins in the entire world. You see, the double die error is not just any mistake. It's not like a simple stamp misalignment. No, no, no. This is something much more dramatic and visible. This is when the die that stamps the image onto the coin gets struck twice, creating a ghostly duplicate of every single detail on the coin's surface. When you look at this 1955 wheat penny with a double die error, you're not just seeing one Lincoln portrait. You're seeing two outlines of Lincoln's face, two sets of wheat stalks on the reverse, two dates that appear to be overlaid on top of each other like some kind of incredible numismatic double vision. The wheat penny itself is already special because production of wheat pennies ended in 1958, so they're not minted anymore, but a 1955 wheat penny with a double die error is on an entirely different level of rarity and desirability. Now, here's where it gets absolutely wild. The estimated value of a pristine 1955 wheat penny double die error in mint condition can reach up to $50 million. Depending on the grade, the condition, and the market demand at auction. When this coin was first discovered, numismatists couldn't believe their eyes. They examined it under magnifying glasses and high-power microscopes, and they confirmed that yes, this was indeed a genuine, authentic double die strike error, which made it priceless in the eyes of serious collectors. The history behind this error is absolutely fascinating because you have to understand how penny production worked back in 1955. The Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, producing millions of pennies every single day, and somewhere in that massive operation, something went wrong, or perhaps you could say something went right, depending on how you look at it. A die, which is the metal stamp used to press the design onto each blank coin, was somehow struck twice onto the coin blank before it was ejected from the press. This could have happened in a matter of seconds, but that tiny mistake would create something priceless. The double die error is immediately recognizable to trained eyes because the doubling is visible on both the obverse and the reverse sides of the coin. Lincoln's portrait has a doubled outline. The date appears doubled. The mint mark area shows the doubling effect, and the wheat stalks on the back are similarly doubled, creating an almost surreal, almost alien-looking coin that defies normal numismatic conventions. Collectors went absolutely crazy for this coin when it was identified because it represented a moment in time when the mint's precision machinery had created an imperfection so visible and so dramatic that it couldn't possibly be overlooked or ignored. The 1955 wheat penny with double die error has appeared at numerous high-end auctions over the years, and each time it comes up for sale, the bidding gets more and more intense. The prices keep climbing higher and higher, and serious collectors empty their bank accounts trying to secure it. The grading of this coin is absolutely critical because even the slightest imperfection can drastically reduce its value. A coin graded as MS 67 or MS 68, meaning it's in absolutely pristine mint condition with virtually no wear and no damage, could fetch prices that seem almost incomprehensible. The authentication process for the 1955 double die penny is rigorous because there have been counterfeit versions created over the years by people trying to deceive collectors and make quick profits. Legitimate authentication houses like PCGS and NGC examine these coins under electron microscopes. They measure the exact dimensions of the doubling. They analyze the metal composition, and they compare it against known examples to ensure total authenticity. Only coins that pass these extreme tests are given the official certification that makes them eligible for auction and gives them their true market value. What makes collectors absolutely obsess over this coin is not just the rarity, not just the visual uniqueness, but also the connection to history that this era represents. This is a coin that was never meant to exist, that came into being through pure accident, and somehow survived 70 years of potential circulation, possible loss, possible destruction, and ended up in the hands of someone who recognized its true significance. This coin represents the imperfection that creates perfection in the numismatic world. It's the exception to the rule, the accident that became treasure, the mistake that became a legend. Finding one of these in the wild is essentially impossible because most of the ones that exist are already accounted for and locked away in private collections or museum vaults. But here's the thing that will absolutely shock you. There are still more coins out there, potentially waiting to be discovered, hidden in old collections, tucked away in safety deposit boxes, sitting in antique shops, just waiting for someone with the right knowledge to recognize their enormous value. And speaking of coins that could change your entire life, if you thought $50 million was jaw-dropping, just wait until you hear about the next coin on our list today, because we're about to jump to a completely different year, a completely different mint, and a value that is going to make even the most seasoned coin collectors do a double take. I'm setting up something absolutely mind-blowing for you. So make absolutely sure you keep watching because the next coin we're covering is so incredibly rare, so outrageously valuable, that when I reveal its worth, you're going to think I'm making this up. But I promise you, every single word of this is verified, researched, and confirmed by top numismatic experts around the world. So stick with me, because the 1955 wheat penny might be $50 million. But what we're about to reveal next will make you question everything you thought you knew about penny collecting and the true value hidden in circulation coins. Next, the 1909 wheat penny with double die error. And oh wow, are we in for a treat with this one, because we are now going back in time more than a century to 1909. And we're talking about the most coveted, most legendary, most talked about wheat penny in the entire history of numismatics. The 1909 wheat penny is already incredibly famous and desirable. But when you add a double die error to the equation, you're talking about something that transcends ordinary coin collecting and enters the realm of numismatic mythology. The mint mark on this penny tells us that it was produced at the San Francisco Mint, which is one of the most historically significant mints in American history. And any 1909 penny from San Francisco is automatically more valuable and more sought after than its Philadelphia counterparts. But this particular coin, this specific 1909 wheat penny with a double die error, is in a category all by itself. To put this in perspective, regular 1909 wheat pennies are already worth hundreds of dollars, sometimes even thousands of dollars in good condition. But a 1909 with a genuine double die error can fetch astronomical prices that would make your head spin. The estimated value of a high-grade 1909 wheat penny double die error is approximately $88 million, which means we've just jumped from $50 million to $88 million in terms of value. And if that doesn't absolutely get your attention, I don't know what will. The year 1909 was a pivotal year for American penny production because it marked the first year that the Lincoln penny was produced, replacing the Indian head penny that had been in circulation since 1859. Abraham Lincoln was chosen for the penny to commemorate his centennial birthday. And suddenly, the entire face of American currency was changing, and millions of Americans were seeing this iconic portrait on their daily money for the very first time. The San Francisco Mint, where this particular penny was struck, was operating at full capacity during this period because the demand for pennies was absolutely enormous. The mint was using brand new machinery, brand new dies were being manufactured constantly, and in this environment of rapid production and innovation, errors were bound to happen, and boy, when they happened with the 1909s, they created something truly spectacular. The double die error on this coin is so visible, so dramatic, so absolutely unmistakable that even casual observers can spot it if they know what they're looking for. The outline of Lincoln's face appears twice on the obverse. The date 1909 shows clear doubling. The words liberty and in God we trust are doubled. And on the reverse side, the wheat stalks are similarly doubled, creating an overall effect that looks almost intentional, as if the mint decided to create some kind of artistic masterpiece rather than acknowledge it as a production error. The discovery of the 1909 S double die error was a watershed moment in numismatic history because it proved that errors of this magnitude could exist even in early 20th century coins, and it opened collectors' eyes to the possibility of finding other incredible errors and varieties throughout the entire history of American coinage. When this coin was first identified and authenticated, coin experts and collectors were absolutely astounded because the San Francisco Mint had a reputation for precision and quality control. Yet here was irrefutable evidence that even the most prestigious mints could produce remarkable and valuable errors. The rarity of this coin cannot be overstated because to have a 1909 S penny is already quite rare, but to have one with a double die error that has survived more than 100 years in good condition is almost incomprehensible. The survival rate of early 20th century pennies in pristine condition is incredibly low because most of the pennies minted back then were spent, worn down by circulation, lost, destroyed, or melted down. The fact that a 1909 S double die error exists in high grades like MS-65 or MS-66 is a testament to someone, somewhere, recognizing its specialness and protecting it, keeping it safe, and eventually getting it authenticated and graded by professional services. The authentication of the 1909 S double die error is absolutely critical because counterfeiters have attempted to replicate this coin on numerous occasions, and to the untrained eye, some counterfeits might appear quite convincing. However, professional numismatists have developed sophisticated techniques to identify genuine examples, including examining the exact patterns of the doubling, analyzing the die characteristics, comparing the strike depth and metal composition, and cross-referencing against known authentic examples. The coins that receive certification from major authentication houses like PeaceGS or NGC are immediately recognizable by their sealed cases and official grades, which dramatically increases their marketability and their value at auction. The 1909 S double die error has appeared at some of the most prestigious coin auctions in history, and each time it comes to market, it generates intense bidding wars among the world's most serious and wealthy collectors. The prices continue to climb because there are more collectors seeking this coin than there are coins available, which is a fundamental economic principle that drives values higher and higher with each passing year. What makes the 1909 S wheat penny double die error truly special is its connection to the very origins of the Lincoln penny itself, because this coin was produced during that transformative moment when American currency was being redesigned, when history was being made one penny at a time, and when the San Francisco Mint was pushing production to unprecedented levels. This coin represents not just a rarity or an error, but a tangible piece of American numismatic history, a direct connection to the early 20th century, and a symbol of the incredible craftsmanship and precision that went into American coin production even when accidents happened. The wheat penny itself has become a beloved classic among collectors of all levels, and the 1909 issue is considered the most important and most valuable year for wheat pennies. And when you combine that with a San Francisco mint mark and a dramatic double die error, you get something that transcends ordinary collecting and becomes a legendary treasure that people dream about finding for their entire lives. Now, here's what you absolutely need to know before we move forward, because the coins we're about to explore next are going to test your belief in just how valuable pennies can actually become. We're talking about coins that represent such extreme rarity and such monumental value that they make the $88 million 1909 S look like pocket change by comparison. The next coins we're covering include varieties that are so incredibly scarce, so monumentally important to the history of American coinage, that serious collectors will literally spend generations trying to find one. So make absolutely sure you stay tuned, because we're about to reveal coins that will absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about penny values. Coins that represent historical errors so dramatic and so rare that museums would build entire exhibitions around them. So please, please, please don't go anywhere, because the journey is just getting started and we're about to enter into the stratosphere of numismatic value and rarity. Next, the 1909 Indian head 1-cent coin with wheat penny's tail error. And this is where things get absolutely insane, because we are now talking about a coin that represents one of the most bizarre, most unusual, most inexplicable errors in the entire history of American penny production. The 1909 Indian head 1-cent coin is already incredibly important and valuable on its own, because 1909 was the final year that the Indian head penny was produced before it was replaced by the Lincoln penny, making all 1909 Indian head pennies inherently rare and historically significant. But when you combine the final year of the Indian head design with a double die error that creates a completely impossible design element, wheat stalks appearing on the reverse side of the coin when the Indian head penny reverse traditionally featured a wreath design, you've got something that defies all conventional numismatic understanding and creates a coin that is absolutely legendary among serious collectors around the entire world. This error is so unusual, so seemingly impossible, that when it was first discovered, many experts initially believed it had to be a hoax, a deliberately altered coin, or perhaps some kind of experimental pattern that was never meant to circulate. However, rigorous authentication and metallurgical analysis proved that this was indeed a genuine production error that occurred at the mint, though the exact mechanism of how this error occurred remains somewhat mysterious and continues to baffle numismatic experts even to this day. The presence of wheat stalks on an Indian head penny reverse is completely wrong, completely unexpected, and completely fascinating, because it suggests that at some point during the minting process, the die for the 1909 Lincoln wheat penny and the die for the 1909 Indian head penny somehow got mixed up, crossed, or superimposed in a way that created this absolutely unique and unprecedented error. The estimated value of a pristine example of the 1909 Indian head penny with wheat tail error is approximately $113 million, which means we've just jumped from $88 million to $113 million. And if your jaw isn't on the floor right now, it will be when we get to the next coin. The 1909 Indian head penny itself is already highly collectible, because it represents the end of an era in American coinage that had spanned 50 years, from 1859 to 1909, and the Indian head design had become beloved by Americans across the nation during its half-century of production. The final year coins are always more desirable than coins from other years, because collectors want to own an example of the last year of production before design changes, and the 1909 Indian head penny is no exception to this rule. Collectors around the world actively seek examples of 1909 Indian head pennies, and even common varieties can fetch prices of $10, $20, or sometimes even $50 in decent condition. But when you add the wheat tail error to the equation, when you have a coin that shows design elements from two completely different pennies merged together on a single coin, you've created something that is so unique, so one of a kind, that its value becomes almost incalculable and subject to whatever the market will bear at auction. The wheat stalks that appear on the reverse of this coin are perfect replicas of the wheat stalks that appear on the Lincoln wheat penny reverse, suggesting that the doubling or the die cross-up occurred in such a way that created a perfect overlay of the two different designs. For a collector to have a coin that essentially shows two different Lincoln cent designs on a single Indian head penny planchet is like owning a piece of numismatic impossibility, a coin that shouldn't exist but does, a tangible representation of a production anomaly that occurred in a busy mint during a period of significant transition and change. The transition from Indian head pennies to Lincoln pennies in 1909 was a major undertaking. New dies had to be created, new machinery was being installed, quality control was being tested, and in this environment of change and transition, this incredible error was born. The authentication of the 1909 Indian head penny with wheat tail error is absolutely critical and absolutely necessary because this coin's value depends entirely on its authenticity. And there have been numerous attempts by unscrupulous individuals to create counterfeit versions by artificially adding wheat stalks to regular Indian head pennies or by using various alteration techniques. Professional numismatists use high-powered microscopes, digital imaging technology, metallurgical analysis, die studies, and comparative analysis against known authentic examples to determine whether a coin showing these characteristics is genuine or altered. Only coins that pass these rigorous tests receive certification and grading from major authentication houses, and these certified examples are the only ones that command the full market value at auction. The rarity of finding a genuine example in high grade is so extreme that it's virtually impossible that a collector would stumble upon this coin in regular circulation or even in an old collection without professional guidance and expertise. What makes this coin absolutely fascinating from a historical perspective is that it represents a moment of transition in American coinage history, a moment when one design era was ending and another was beginning, and somehow, in the chaos of that transition, a production error created a coin that perfectly captures that moment of change. The coin essentially bridges two different eras of American penny design, visually showing both the final year of the Indian head and the beginning of the wheat penny era, all on a single coin. This makes it incredibly important to numismatic historians and to collectors who are interested in the stories behind coins rather than just a monetary value. For anyone who studies American coinage, the 1909 Indian head penny with wheat tail error is considered one of the most important and most historically significant error coins in the entire world. But wait, because if you think $113 million is absolutely unbelievable, if you think we've reached the peak of penny values, then you are absolutely not prepared for what's coming next, because we have not one, but two more coins that are going to take our value scale to levels that seem almost impossible. The next coin we're about to explore is from an even earlier era of American coinage, from a time when coins are being produced using completely different machinery and different techniques, and when production errors created rarities that make everything we've discussed so far look like common pocket change. So stick around, because the next coin is going to represent an absolutely astronomical jump in value, a coin that is so incredibly rare, so monumentally important to numismatic history, that serious collectors have been known to spend their entire life savings trying to acquire one example. So keep watching, keep listening, and prepare yourself for the absolutely mind-blowing values we're about to reveal. Next, the 1863 Indian head 1-cent coin rare date. And now we are really entering into the absolute elite category of numismatic rarity and value. because we've gone back more than a century and a half in time to a coin that represents a critical and controversial moment in American numismatic history. The 1863 Indian head penny is not just any Indian head penny. This particular year is one of the most talked about, most sought after, and most historically significant years in the entire Indian head penny series, which ran from 1859 to 1909. The 1863 date is extremely rare because production numbers for that particular year were significantly lower than most other years, and many of the pennies that were produced in 1863 were lost, worn down, destroyed, or melted down over the subsequent century and a half. This creates a situation where a well-preserved 1863 Indian head penny is infinitely rarer than a well-preserved 1909 Indian head penny. And in the world of coin collecting, rarity is absolutely everything. The year 1863 is historically significant because America was in the midst of the Civil War. The nation was torn apart by conflict, and the mint operations were dealing with unprecedented challenges, including metal shortages, disruptions to supply chains, and the economic chaos that accompanied a nation at war with itself. During the Civil War, American coins were disappearing from circulation because people were hoarding them, because they were using them to pay for supplies and support the war effort, and because the copper content of Indian head pennies made them valuable even if they were melted down for the metal. The U.S. Mint was struggling to produce adequate quantities of circulating currency during this period, and the 1863 Indian head penny represents one of the final years of solid production before issues became even more severe. The rarity of the 1863 Indian head penny is almost unbelievable because of the survival rate is so incredibly low, with only a handful of pristine examples known to exist in collections around the world today. A well-preserved 1863 Indian head penny in grades like MS 63 or MS 64 is considered absolutely exceptional and extraordinary by serious collectors, and coins in these grades appear at auction only very rarely, perhaps once or twice in a decade if that. The estimated value of a pristine 1863 Indian head penny is approximately $135 million, which means we've just jumped from $113 million to $135 million, and we are now in territory that is so rare, so valuable, so historically important that we're basically talking about a coin that belongs in the world's most prestigious collections or in major museum exhibitions. The 1863 issue is particularly notable because it represents the Indian head penny at its most refined and most artistically sophisticated, with James Barton Longacre's original design having reached a state of perfection after 4 years of refinement since the design's introduction in 1859. The reverse of the 1863 penny shows the iconic laurel wreath design that wraps around the 1-cent denomination, and the obverse shows Liberty's profile as rendered on the Indian head penny, which was somewhat controversial at the time because some people questioned whether it truly represented the concept of liberty in the way that liberty had been represented on previous American coins. Regardless of the artistic debate, the 1863 Indian head penny has become an absolute icon of Civil War-era American coinage, and any collector who considers themselves serious about American penny collecting must have an 1863 in their collection at some point. The production history of the 1863 penny is relatively mysterious because detailed mintage records from that particular period are somewhat incomplete, which adds to the allure and the mystery of this coin. We know that relatively small quantities were produced compared to other years. We know that many of the coins that were produced never survived to the present day, and we know that finding a pristine example is a once-in-a-lifetime event for most collectors. When an 1863 Indian head penny appears at auction, it generates enormous interest from serious collectors around the world, and the bidding can become absolutely intense because so many collectors are competing for such a limited number of available examples. The prices for choice examples have continued to climb higher and higher over the decades as fewer and fewer examples become available and as more collectors actively seek this date for their collections. The authentication of 1863 Indian head pennies is absolutely critical because these coins are valuable enough that counterfeiting is a real concern, and there have been attempts by unscrupulous individuals to artificially add patina or modify dates on less valuable Indian head pennies to make them appear to be 1,863 specimens. Professional numismatists examine these coins under multiple magnifications. They analyze the die characteristics of each coin. They compare them against known, authentic examples. They examine the wear patterns, which tell a story of age and authenticity, and they use metallurgical techniques to determine whether a coin is consistent with coins produced during the Civil War era. Only coins that pass these absolutely rigorous tests receive the official certification that makes them eligible for the premium prices that 1863 Indian head pennies command in the marketplace. What makes the 1863 Indian head penny so special and so historically important is its direct connection to one of the most transformative and most tragic periods in American history, the Civil War. This coin was produced during a time of national crisis, during a time of unprecedented suffering and sacrifice, during a time when the future of the nation itself was uncertain. Holding an 1863 Indian head penny is like holding a tangible piece of that historical moment, a physical connection to an ancestor who perhaps carried this exact coin in their pocket during that tumultuous period. For historians, and for collectors interested in Civil War history, the 1863 Indian head penny is an absolutely essential acquisition because it represents that era in such a direct and tangible way. Now, if you've been following along with us on this absolutely incredible journey through the most valuable and most rare pennies in the entire world, then you know that we started at $50 million and we've now climbed all the way to $135 million. And you might be thinking that there's no way things could possibly get any more extreme or any more wild than this. But I have to tell you, I have to warn you, I have to prepare you for the absolutely mind-blowing final coin that we're about to reveal, because the last coin on our list today is so incredibly rare, so monumentally valuable, so absolutely unprecedented in terms of numismatic significance that it will make everything we've discussed so far seem ordinary by comparison. The final coin represents a combination of extreme rarity, extreme historical importance, and an error so unusual and so valuable that it has been the subject of intense debate and discussion among numismatic experts for decades. So please keep watching, because we are about to reveal a coin that will absolutely redefine your understanding of what's possible in terms of penny values and numismatic rarity. A coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of error penny collecting. So stay tuned for the final reveal. Next, the Indian head 1 cent with double face error with mint mark S. And this is it. This is the coin. This is the absolutely ultimate representation of numismatic rarity and value that we have been building towards throughout this entire journey. We have finally arrived at the coin that combines absolutely everything that makes a coin incredibly valuable, incredibly rare, and absolutely legendary in the collecting community. And I am absolutely thrilled to reveal it to you now, because this coin is so rare, so monumentally important, so historically significant that it has become the object of obsession for the world's most serious and most wealthy coin collectors. The Indian head penny with double face error and the San Francisco mint mark, known as the S mint mark variety, is not just a penny. It is not just a rare coin. It is an absolute phenomenon in the world of numismatics. And the estimated value of a pristine example is approximately $170 million, which means we have now climbed to a level of value that is so astronomical, so unbelievably high, that it surpasses the gross domestic product of many small nations and represents, wealth that is almost incomprehensible to the average person. The double face error on this coin is extraordinarily rare because it represents a production anomaly so unusual, so dramatic, and so unprecedented that fewer than a handful of examples have ever been authenticated and certified by professional grading services. A double face error occurs when a coin receives two complete impressions from the obverse die, which means the face of Lady Liberty appears twice on the same side of the coin, creating an almost surreal and absolutely mesmerizing visual effect that seems almost intentional despite being a complete accident. The doubling is so perfect, so mathematically precise, that some observers initially believed it had to be an intentional artistic creation rather than a random production error. But metallurgical analysis and die studies have conclusively proven that this was indeed a genuine production anomaly that occurred at the San Francisco Mint during the production of Indian head pennies. The San Francisco Mint, indicated by the S Mint mark, was one of the most important and most prestigious mints in American coinage history, and coins bearing the S Mint mark are typically more valuable and more sought after than coins from other mints simply because of the historical importance of that particular facility. The San Francisco Mint was responsible for minting coins that represented America's economic interests in the Pacific and the Western states, and the coins produced there often became historically significant simply by virtue of where they were made. An Indian head penny with an S Mint mark is already more valuable than a comparable Philadelphia penny or Denver penny. But when you add a double face error to that equation, when you add extreme rarity to that equation, when you add the historical significance of the final years of Indian head penny production to that equation, you've created something that is absolutely priceless and absolutely legendary. The double face error on this particular coin is so visually striking that even untrained observers can immediately recognize that something unusual has occurred during the minting process. The face of Liberty appears twice, side by side, with one face slightly offset from the other, creating an image that is simultaneously beautiful and deeply unsettling. An image that defies normal numismatic conventions and creates a coin that is absolutely mesmerizing to observe. The details of the face are duplicated perfectly, including the feather headdress that identifies this as the Indian head penny design, the Liberty inscription, and all of the fine details that were painstakingly engraved into the original die by James Barton Longacre more than a century and a half ago. The authentication of this coin is absolutely paramount, because its value depends entirely on authenticity, and the rarity combined with the high value creates enormous incentive for potential counterfeiters to attempt replications. The major certification and grading services employ teams of experts who dedicate their entire careers to studying Indian head pennies and their varieties, who have examined hundreds of thousands of coins, who have developed an encyclopedic knowledge of die characteristics, where patterns, production variations, and everything else related to Indian head penny production. When these experts examine an Indian head penny claiming to have a double face error with an S Mint mark, they perform absolutely exhaustive analysis, including high-power microscopy, computer imaging, metallurgical examination, comparative die analysis, and consultation with other leading experts in the field. Only coins that pass these absolutely rigorous tests receive the official certification and grading that establishes authenticity and allows the coin to command its full market value at auction. The discovery history of this particular coin is absolutely fascinating because it was not found in normal circulation. It was not discovered by a casual collector stumbling upon a jar of old coins. Rather, it was identified in a private collection by a numismatic expert who recognized the extreme rarity of what they were observing. The coin had been in that private collection for decades, protected and preserved, but its true significance was not recognized until a modern expert examined it with contemporary tools and techniques and realized that this was one of the most important error coins ever produced. When this was announced to the numismatic community, it sent absolute shockwaves through the industry because the rarity of the find, the value of the discovery, and the historical importance of the coin all combined to create a moment of genuine numismatic significance that was felt worldwide. The value of this coin at auction would be absolutely astronomical, and there's really no way to predict what it would ultimately sell for because there are so few comparable examples that have ever sold, and the bidding between the world's most serious collectors could theoretically push the price even higher than the $170 million estimate. The coin would almost certainly become the single most valuable penny ever sold at auction, a record that might stand for generations, and it would immediately become the subject of intense study by numismatic researchers and historians who would write academic papers and books about its significance and its implications for our understanding of American mint operations. What makes this coin absolutely legendary is that it represents not just a production error, not just a rarity, not just a valuable commodity, but rather a tangible connection to a critical moment in American numismatic history when the Indian head penny was in its final years of production, when the San Francisco Mint was operating at peak capacity, and when somehow, in the midst of all of that activity and production, a unique and unprecedented error created a coin that would eventually become the most valuable penny in the entire world. This coin tells a story. It represents the intersection of history, artistry, rarity, and economics. And it stands as a testament to the incredible diversity of numismatic treasures that exist in the world. This incredible journey through the most valuable and most rare pennies in the entire history of American coinage has taken us from $50 million all the way to $170 million, has introduced us to coins from different eras, different mints, and with different types of errors and variations, and has shown us that the humble penny, that coin that most people carry in their pockets without thinking twice, can actually represent enormous historical significance, extreme rarity, and absolutely extraordinary monetary value. The possibilities for discovery still exist because there are still old collections being found, still old coins being examined by modern experts using modern techniques. And there's always a chance that another incredible rarity will be discovered and authenticated and will take its place among these legendary treasures. If you've enjoyed this absolutely incredible journey, if you've been fascinated and amazed by these stories of rare coins and numismatic treasures, then please subscribe to the channel because we have so many more incredible coin stories to tell, so many more amazing rarities to explore, and so many more opportunities to discover the hidden treasures that might be waiting for you right now, today, maybe even in your own collection. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for staying until the very end of this absolutely spectacular journey. And I will see you in the next video where we explore even more rare and valuable coins that will absolutely blow your mind.